All right, welcome back to 52 Licks, another 52 Licks for 2020. This time we're going to deal with a Roy Haynes phrase. Roy Haynes has a bunch of cool double time stuff that he does, plays a lot of hand-to-hand alternate sticking stuff, and this is one of my favorite little double time phrases that he does. There's some other stickings for this as well, which we'll get into, but let's break down the phrase. So it's all 16th notes, or double time eighth notes if you want to think of it that way, and it starts on the and of one. After he starts on the and of one, and it's a little 3-beat looping accent, it eventually resolves back to one, like so. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. That's the whole phrase. Again, there's some other 6-stroke stickings that we can get into, but part of Roy's sound is really kind of that like real like snappy sound that he gets from those singles. Also kind of high-pitched toms and high-pitched snare, where we can be really articulate with those sorts of phrases. But what's cool about it is that little 3-beat looping pattern, and the important part is if you start that on the and of one, it will eventually come out right on one by the end. So this is from a Roy Haynes solo album entitled Out of the Afternoon. It is my favorite Roy Haynes album. He plays great on it. This is a tune called Snap Crackle, which is one of his nicknames. Again, part of what I was just saying about that sound. He has a super slick intro to this tune, but later he does take a solo, and in it, it's like a medium tempo tune. That's about the tempo. And in there, at some point, he breaks it out and goes, right? One of the things about Roy is, Roy says that he never really got his rudiments together because he felt like his hands were never even, and so he just couldn't really get that language, which is hilarious because he has some of the most even hands I know of. It's the opposite. He's got such even hands. He can play all this great single stroke rough stuff, or single stroke stuff, or alternate stroke stuff. So in some ways, his language is unique because he isn't relying on some of the rudimental stuff that maybe Philly Joe or Max or some of those guys, some of his contemporaries, Kenny Clark, would have been dealing with. He does use some of that, of course, but he kind of has developed his own language by avoiding using those. According to him, he avoided using them because he couldn't play them, but that dude can pretty much play anything. So I think it's just a choice of him to kind of go in a slightly different direction, and we thank him for it because it's his own version of the language. So as we're playing through this phrase, if you have trouble getting around the drum, I like to use a little bit of molar or pumping action for that little accent so that I can keep the rest of my hands down like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Also, as I move over to that floor tom, you can move over like that, but I like to drop into French grip. And I want to set up my drum so I can easily go back and forth between those. I want to have that motion be nice and even. The other thing I want to make sure that I'm doing is that I'm not wasting space by lifting the stick up too high. That's extra wasted space. I want to use that pumping action where basically the wrist breaks and lifts from here. I can use that momentum, the impetus of that, to get me to that drum. A few little things like that that'll help smooth that out. If you don't want to single it or you want it to be a little bit smoother, this is a great opportunity to use the paradiddle diddle. Just playing. The double paradiddle doesn't work in terms of the crossover, so use that paradiddle diddle, particularly if you've been going through some of these 52 licks, you've been working on your paradiddles and paradiddle diddles. That's a great one to use to kind of have an alternate version. I love having alternate stickings for these things because sometimes the tempo or the drums themselves or how I'm phrasing it dictates that maybe singles aren't the right sound. Maybe I want to do a variation of this that's slicker or involves some other orchestration around the kit that becomes harder to pull off as single strokes. So I like having backup stickings. Just gives me more options when it comes to creating my own versions of these languages. So hope you enjoyed this Roy lick. It's a lot of fun to play. Cool little double time phrase to bust out. Really crisp and clear, much like Roy's playing. All right, see you on the next one. Good luck.